Hey everybody, how we doing? Well, hello girls. Little ball baby. Look at the brown on her. I don't know if you're able to see the brown on her face and her neck starting to show through. Hadn't really noticed much of that before, but as she's getting a little older, might be some interesting colors. All right, we're here with the girls. Everybody's looking pretty good, but that's some of what we're going to talk about today. Getting ready on the girls. We are getting ready for breeding season. We're getting really close here. Probably about, as you're watching this, a little over 2 weeks away probably. So the thing we need to think about is getting the ewes ready, and that's what they call flushing the ewes, and that's giving a little extra feed. We'll talk about that. Maybe some of you are getting ready, it's your first year, maybe you're getting ready to breed, maybe you already have, but I thought that's why we'd talk about a few of the things, discuss what we're going to do to get ready for fall breeding. And as I said, one is for the ewes, and even though the gals here looking pretty good shape, we've been feeding them some hay all summer, so that's put everybody in pretty good shape. This is the time of year you might want to add a little extra feed. This is where you add a little bit extra. They discuss flushing or adding some feed value to them to try to put them in the best shape possible as we get ready for breeding, because when you put them in the best shape possible, that increases the odds of ovulation and getting them bred. So that's what you want to do. So in my case, what am I going to do? I have been feeding some grass hay to them all summer. And even though they've been out on pasture, they're eating pasture, they're also getting a little bit of hay each evening, because I have it. You know, I don't feed a lot of grain. So in my case, I'm probably going to continue with the grass hay. I'm probably going to pick up their grain just a little bit. I might pick up the grain value just a little. And the other thing I'm probably going to go ahead and do, I have a little bit of a round bale of alfalfa left from last year. Just a little bit of it's left in there, but I figure that's just enough for probably the next 2 weeks that I'll feed them their little extra grain, I'll give them the grass hay, but I'm probably going to start adding a little alfalfa hay. I'll give them a little alfalfa each evening. They're not going to get much, but they're going to get something. Between that and extra grain, kind of help pick them up just a little bit, add a little bit to it. I don't want them overly fat though. I mean, if you get them too obese and too fat, that can make it difficult when it comes time for breeding also. So you don't really want to get into that, but you want them in as good a shape as possible. So for yourself, you'll have to decide what's right for you. If you're not feeding hay, if they're just getting by on pasture and maybe a little bit of grain, maybe you want to add a little bit of good quality hay if you can, pick up a little bit there. Or maybe, as I'm doing, add a little bit of grain into it, increase the grain just a little bit. In the past, I have used a conception mineral. Was it Durafirm? And to be honest with you, a couple of years ago, I thought that was making a difference. One year I ended up with 3 sets of triplets. And that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to help with conception. It's supposed to help maybe end up with more multiple births. My daughter uses it with her goats. But last year, I got a set of triplets from Dub, and she's the one that gives you a set of triplets every year, so it doesn't matter what I do, she's going to get a set of triplets. So I didn't give any of that this year. I'm just giving them regular mineral this year. I didn't add any of the Durafirm in. I decided I didn't see that much of a difference last year. I already had a bag of mineral, so I thought, well, instead of letting that sit around all the way and feeding the other, and even when I buy a bag of mineral, it doesn't, I won't use the whole bag. So it'll sit around for a couple of years, and I thought, let's just let it go. We're just going to run with the regular this year. Main thing is, right now, you got a few weeks to go, is pick up a little bit of feed for them, try to help them out a little bit on the conception on that end of it. And speaking of feed, head over to the shed, got some other stuff to talk about. All right, we're going to talk some hay. Let's see if the boys are here. It's going to be a hot one again today. So Yep, there you go. Hey, Taz. How we doing, huh? Everybody's in here. Trying to stay a little cool. I'll tell you, late September, we're 90 degrees. The other day, 90 again today. And it's finally going to break. Next week, probably get back in the 60s, so that'll help. All right, we're going to discuss hay for a little bit. Thought I'd show you a comparison real quick. We did the grass bales. If you stick with me, you know that we baled off the backside. We got the grass bales. My daughter took half, I took half. But I still wanted to buy some alfalfa. So I ended up picking up 3 round bales of alfalfa this year. Normally I do 4 or 5, and that's pretty much what I feed, maybe a grass bale or 2. This year I ended up with 7 grass bales. I really didn't need the alfalfa, but I like feeding the alfalfa in the wintertime when it's cold. I think it gives them a little more energy and stuff. They get more out of it. They love that stuff. So I went ahead and I bought 3 round bales. Now, these are a little smaller than I normally get. We usually get the real big ones. These are slightly smaller because for my daughter and the guy that bales, his wife both have goats, both have the same round bale feeders. And these slightly smaller, it's probably about a 1,600 pound round bale instead of 1,900. That fits in those round bale feeders better for them. So I said, fine, just give me the small ones. So I ended up buying 3 of them. And I figured, you know, hay's down a little this year. Like I said, maybe that's a 1,600 pound. I paid $100 a piece for them. So I figured if I got $300 for my winter's hay supply, I should have plenty of grass bales left over. But I kind of, looking ahead, last year it was 14 ewe lambs and 5 ram lambs. So odds are we may end up with 14 ram lambs and 5 ewe lambs this next year. And that means I might end up having a bunch of ram lambs left over to grow out. I could sell them, you know, I'll sell some, but I could sell the others cheaply, I suppose, the last ones that don't. But I thought, you know what, I've got, for buying 3 round bales, I got all the grass bales left. We'll just keep them. We'll just keep them, feed them out. I may have to feed them hay all the time because I won't have enough pasture for them. But, you know, it didn't cost me anything for the grass hay anyway. So, all right, but I want to compare grass to alfalfa. And we all, you know, everybody knows probably alfalfa's a little bit better, but what is the difference in them? And my daughter and I were both kind of curious about that. So where she works, at a feed store where she works, she can send stuff in to get it analyzed, send the feed in, send the hay in. So we took a sample off the grass bales, and then we took a sample from the alfalfa. Now, we ended up taking, she had some squares and the rounds. My daughter was using the squares, had a few squares, so we just grabbed some out of one of those, but we figure it's going to be close enough to tell the difference. So let me hang you up here so I can get out my cheat sheet. So I'm going to talk about this. There we go. How's that? All right. So how does grass and alfalfa compare? Let me straighten that up. I got it down. We'll put it up so you can see it. All right, here's the comparison side by side. Grass on the left, alfalfa on the right. If you notice moisture, dry matter and everything was pretty close. And of course, the first one you're going to see is protein. 8.19 or 958 for dry weight versus 24 for dry weight. So we're looking at basically 10 to just over 20. So in the alfalfa, we're going to double the protein. So you're going to double up the protein on that. But then it's kind of interesting, as I went down, you know, some of them were close, fibers in there close. Total digestible nutrients was pretty close to about the same, a little bit higher on the alfalfa. Net energy was about the same. The sulfur, phosphorus, potassium, everything got down there. We got down potassium. We started seeing a lot more potassium in the alfalfa. And way down as we got down here, we get down to iron, considerably more iron, 182 to 20. Magnesium, manganese, not magnesium, manganese. Well, I should do something I could pronounce, right? That's quite a bit higher. Copper. With sheep, we're talking copper. But we're talking 10 parts a million versus 2. So it's not a major thing. and zinc seem to be about the same. So as you look at those, everything is pretty close. A few things are different. They're not terribly different. The biggest one, of course, is the protein level. And that's when people are going to be concerned with doing more protein. So I thought about this. And I even discussed this with my daughter because she does some stuff with her feed that instead of feeding 20% protein, if I'm feeding 10% on the hay, do I want to bump up the feed or something? And my daughter said, well, in case for her goats, she'll use some alfalfa pellets. And I thought, well, there you go. I could add some alfalfa pellets to the feed mix and up the protein. But then I found out that even though they're not the cheapest thing in the world, they're 17% protein. And I said, well, okay, hang on a second. They're 17% protein. I'm mixing, if you've followed any of my feeding videos, I'm mixing a 12% sweet feed, 4 bags with 1 bag of a 32% protein concentrate, which gives me an overall 16%. So I thought, if I'm adding alfalfa pellets at 17% and I'm already feeding 16%, what gain is there? There really isn't that much gain. I'm not gaining a whole lot by adding alfalfa pellets. I'm better off just keep the feed that I'm doing. If I want to increase my grain a little, I could increase my grain to help pick that up a little bit. But that's one thing if you want to look at. Feeding grass hay and you say, okay, I now realize, maybe you didn't before, maybe now you did or whatever, that I'm looking at 10% protein, and it could be different on the grass hay that you're doing. Every grass hay is different, all right? Just because mine is 10% or 9% doesn't mean yours is. You could have a much higher, depending on the kind of grass you're baling, could have a higher protein content. But in my case, if I'm going from 9 to 20, clearly it's quite a bit less. But how do you pick that up, or do you pick that up? In my case, I said, oh, gee, alfalfa pellets seem like such a natural thing to do. That was pretty obvious until I found out, really, I wasn't gaining it. And 17% really isn't going to gain me much. I just give them more of the other feed, and that costs a lot less than the alfalfa pellets. And the next thing I looked at, I thought, wait a minute. I have a alfalfa pellet, a concentrated dry pellet, that's only doing 17% protein when the bale itself is doing over 20%. I'd feed more hay. Now, what I will do in that situation, so you understand too, the rams are going to go in here in a few weeks, mid-October. The rams will leave about mid-December. So right now I have a grass bale right here, and I'm using that to feed the rams. But there will be a ram with ewes over here. This pen over here will have a ram with ewes. There's a round bale of grass. And lastly, this pen will have a ram with ewes, and there's a round bale of grass just inside. 2 of those have never been used. And the other one, as you can see, has lost quite a bit. When those 3 bales go down, as each one goes down, they'll be replaced with the alfalfa. So my idea is, hopefully somewhere around November, December, probably somewhere, first part of December maybe, I will switch and they'll start getting some of each, and then they'll basically just get alfalfa. The rams go in mid-October, the rams go out mid-December. Mid-December, the rams will go back, and I will probably quit feeding them the alfalfa at that time. I may up their grain a little. We'll see if they get a little run down from being with ewes. Neither one of them, there's 3 rams, only 11 ewes. They're not going to have that many ewes to breed. I don't see them getting that run down. If you put a ram in and he's got 20 ewes he's got to breed, he could be a little run down after 60 days and need some feed to pick him back up. I don't know if they're really going to see that with these guys. I don't know if that'll be the case. But I'm going to save the alfalfa for the ewes, and the ewes are going to start getting it about a month after they're bred, when we're starting to really get into embryo development. That's when I want them to have the alfalfa, to have the best hay possible, to get the best growth on the lambs inside, and keep them in the best shape while those lambs are inside. Because now every time when they're eating, they got to feed themselves for their own body weight, but they need to help produce on the lambs too. So That's why I bought the alfalfa. I want them to have that while during the gestation period of time, and then hopefully there should be enough left over. And if I feel like I want to buy another bale, I always can. I like to have some alfalfa after the lambs are born, because it won't take a week or so and those lambs are going to be in there eating some hay. They go into it really fast, and they will go into eating alfalfa faster than they will going into grass hay. That's just the way it's going to be. So that's the way I like to do it. Two things you need before breeding season, especially if it's your first time, you haven't done this before: the feed, getting that prepared, and if you have multiple rams, how do you set up your pens? Getting your pens set up so you don't have any problems, or hopefully don't have any problems.